Picture a city caught in the amber glow of a Soviet evening, where the hum of trams and the chatter of workers fill the air. It's 1969, and Rostov-on-Don is alive, a gritty industrial heart in southern Russia. But in its shadows, something sinister is waking. A young man, barely out of his teens, walks these streets, his eyes sharp, his steps deliberate. His name is Zaven Almazyan, and he's about to carve a path of terror that will haunt two cities. This isn't just a story of crime. It's a descent into a mind so twisted it'll make your skin crawl. Stay with me, because what unravels next is a game of cat and mouse that'll keep you guessing until the final moment. Let's start in Rostov, where Zaven was born in 1950 to an Armenian family. He was the kind of kid who faded into the background, quiet, unremarkable, just another face in the crowd. Growing up, he threw himself into freestyle wrestling, his hands learning the art of control, mastering chokeholds that could drop a man in seconds. Those skills, honed in the sweaty gyms of Rostov, weren't just for sport. They were a rehearsal for something far darker. By 1968, Zaven was 18, studying at a technical college and working as a loader, hauling crates under the Soviet sky. To his neighbors, he was ordinary, maybe a bit shy, maybe a bit intense, but nothing to worry about. But inside, something was unraveling. It started with a girl. Zaven had pinned his hopes on her, built a future in his mind. When she chose another man, it wasn't just rejection. It was a betrayal that burned through him like acid. Have you ever felt a wound so deep it changed how you saw the world? For Zaven, that moment was a spark. And in early 1969, that spark became a fire. Women in Rostov started reporting attacks, terrifying, methodical assaults that followed a chilling pattern. A man would approach in the fading light, a knife flashing in his hand. He'd press the blade to their cheek and whisper something strange. You were lost in a card game. Then he'd lead them to a dark corner, an alley, a park, a forgotten lot, and there, he'd unleash his violence. These weren't impulsive acts. They were planned, precise, like a hunter stalking his prey. 3 attacks shook Rostov that year. Each one bolder, each victim left with scars that went beyond the skin. The police were stumped. The Soviet Union was supposed to be a place of order, where crime was a capitalist disease. But this was different. This was a predator, and he was clever. During one attack, he slipped up. His student ID fell to the ground, Zaven Almazyan's name printed clear as day. When the police brought him in, he didn't blink. I lost it weeks ago, he said. His voice calm, his eyes steady. And they bought it. Can you believe it? A monster standing right in front of them, his lies as sharp as his knife. They let him go, and Zaven melted back into the city, a ghost in the crowd. But Rostov was getting dangerous. The police were circling, the pressure building. So Zaven did something audacious. He walked into a military conscription office and volunteered for the Soviet army. Think about that. A killer, hunted by the law, hiding in the one place when no one asks questions. The army was a machine of discipline, a perfect cover. In 1969, he was sent to Voroshilovgrad, a hard-edged city hundreds of miles away. There, he was assigned to a military unit, tasked with tending a pigsty on the base's outskirts. It was a grunt job, but it gave him freedom. The pigsty was isolated, far from watchful eyes. He could slip into the city at night, his knife tucked close, his hunger growing. Voroshilovgrad in 1970 was a city of contrasts. By day, it roared with factories and Soviet pride. By night, its streets fell quiet, its parks and alleys swallowed by shadows. On March 26, 1970, Zaven struck. A young woman was walking home from work when she felt someone behind her. Before she could scream, a knife was at her throat, and those eerie words hissed in her ear. You were lost in a card game. The attack was brutal, precise. And she survived, but barely. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 more women were targeted, each assault following the same twisted script. The city was reeling. The police knew they had a serial predator, but they didn't know who. Not yet. The authorities fought back. They flooded Voroshilovgrad with patrols, 300 officers and volunteers, scouring parks, staking out dark corners. They called him the Voroshilovgrad Maniac, a name that sent chills through the city. But Zaven was slippery. He moved his attacks to the outskirts, where the streetlights faded. He was learning, adapting, his confidence swelling. And then, on April 14, 1970, he crossed a line. Svetlana Mazurina, a 17-year-old with her whole life ahead of her, was walking through a quiet park. Zaven approached, his knife gleaming. This time, he didn't stop at assault. He bound her hands with cord, gagged her with a rag, and after the attack, he tightened his grip around her throat. Svetlana's life ended in that park. Her body left in the grass, a pair of gold-plated watches missing from her wrists. Zaven walked away, her stolen treasures in his pocket, the city none the wiser. What makes a man cross that final line? Was it rage, control, or something deeper? A hunger that grew with every crime. Voroshilovgrad was on edge, fear seeping into its streets. Women stopped walking alone. Parents kept their daughters close. And Zaven? He was just beginning. The city was his playground, and he moved through it like a shadow, leaving clues that taunted the police. A torn newspaper, a piece of cloth, fragments of a puzzle they couldn't yet solve. But how long could he outrun the net closing in? What happens when a predator gets too bold? The answer is coming, and it's darker than you think. The streets of Voroshilovgrad are holding their breath. It's the summer of 1970, and fear has sunk its claws into the city. The Voroshilovgrad Maniac, as the papers call him, is no longer just a shadow. He's a specter, a name whispered in dread. Women clutch their bags tighter, glancing over their shoulders as dusk creeps in. Parents bolt their doors, their daughters' faces flashing in their minds. And Zaven Almazyan? He's out there, moving through the city like a blade through silk, his hunger sharper than ever. The police are closing in, their nets tightening, but this predator is cunning, and he's not done playing his twisted game. What does it take for a man to become a myth in his own lifetime? Let's find out, because the next moves in this deadly dance will leave you reeling. Spring has bled into summer, and Voroshilovgrad is a city under siege, not by tanks or bombs, but by terror. The death of Svetlana Mazurina in April sent shockwaves through the city, her gold-plated watches a grim trophy in Zaven's hands. The police are scrambling, their patrols thicker than ever. 300 officers and volunteers, combing every park, every alley, every dark corner where the streetlights don't reach. They've got a name for him now, the Voroshilovgrad Maniac. But a name isn't a face, and a face isn't a man they can catch. Zaven is too clever, too careful. He's shifted his hunting grounds to the city's edges, where the factories give way to fields and the shadows grow long. But careful doesn't mean tame, and Zaven's fire is burning hotter. On July 4, 1970, the city wakes to another nightmare. Nina Zykova, just 17, is found in a quiet stretch of parkland, her life snuffed out in the grass. The scene is a sickening echo of Svetlana's murder, cord binding her wrists, a rag stuffed in her mouth, and the telltale marks of a chokehold that ended her story. Zaven's signature is unmistakable, but he's left something else this time. A torn scrap of newspaper, rural life, fluttering near the body like a taunt. Can you imagine the gall? A killer so bold he's leaving breadcrumbs, daring the police to follow. The authorities are furious, their pride stung. This isn't just a crime. It's a challenge, a middle finger to the Soviet order they're sworn to uphold. The police double down. They set traps, stationing decoy victims, brave women in plain clothes, wired with fear, but armed with purpose. In the parks and alleys Zaven favors. They're hunting a ghost, but ghosts don't bleed, and Zaven isn't done. On August 6th, he strikes again, targeting 20-year-old Olga Surova. She's walking home, the evening air heavy with the promise of rain, when he appears, his knife catching the last light. "You were lost in a card game," he whispers. The words chilling her blood. But this time, luck intervenes. A passerby's footsteps crunch in the distance, and Zaven bolts, vanishing into the night. Olga survives, her heart pounding, her story a warning that the maniac is still out there, closer than ever. The near miss rattles Zaven, but it doesn't stop him. He's too deep in his own game, too drunk on the power of it. On September 22nd, he tries again, another young woman caught in his sights. The knife, the words, the ritual, it's all the same. But the city's pulse is different now. Strangers appear, their voices cutting through the dark. And Zaven flees, leaving behind a piece of bedsheet stamped with his military unit's mark. It's a mistake, a crack in his armor. But he doesn't know it yet. The police seize the clue, their eyes narrowing. A military connection? The net is tightening, but Zaven's still one step ahead, slipping back to his pigsty on the base, where the pigs don't ask questions, and the night hides his sins. What's it like to live in a city that's afraid of you? To know you're the reason mothers lock their doors, the reason sisters walk in pairs. For Zaven, it's fuel. His crimes aren't just acts, they're performances, each one more daring, each one a brushstroke in a portrait of control. But control is a slippery thing, and the police are learning his patterns. They've mapped his attacks, knowing the chord, the gags, the chokeholds, the eerie phrase about a card game. They're starting to see the man behind the myth. But seeing isn't catching. Zaven's military life gives him cover. His pigsty a lair where he can clean his knife and count his trophies, watches, trinkets, fragments of lives he's stolen. By October, Voroshilovgrad is a pressure cooker. The police have leaned on the community, urging vigilance, spreading sketches of a faceless killer. The city's women are fighting back in their own way, forming groups, carrying makeshift weapons, refusing to be prey. But fear is a heavyweight, and Zaven knows it. On October 15th, he strikes again, targeting a young woman named Lyudmila Petrova. She's 19, a factory worker with dreams bigger than the city's smokestacks. The attack is swift, the knife at her throat, the words hissed in her ear. But Lyudmila fights, her screams piercing the night. A neighbor hears, and Zaven runs, leaving her alive but shaken, another survivor to tell the tale. The police are closer now, their traps more precise, but Zaven's arrogance is growing, and arrogance is a dangerous thing. Clues are piling up, a newspaper scrap, a bedsheet, a pattern of attacks that scream of a single mind. The police are starting to talk to the military, their questions sharper, their suspicions deeper. Zaven's unit is under scrutiny, but he's still invisible. A soldier by day, a monster by night. How long can a man dance on the edge of a blade? How many lives can he shatter before the world fights back? The answer is coming, and it's not what you expect. Voroshilovgrad is a city at war with itself, and Zaven Almazyan is its dark heart, beating louder with every crime. But every heart can be stopped, and the hunt is about to take a turn that will change everything. Voroshilovgrad is a city on its knees, its pulse quickening with every shadow that moves. It's late 1970, and the Voroshilovgrad Maniac has turned the city into his stage, each crime a twisted act in a play only he understands. The air is thick with dread, the kind that makes you check the locks twice, that makes every rustle in the dark feel like a threat. Zaven Almazyan, the soldier who tends pigs by day, is a phantom by night, his knife a conductor's baton, orchestrating fear. The police are closer than ever, their clues piling up like pieces of a shattered mirror. But catching a man like Zaven is like trapping smoke. How do you stop a killer who thrives on the chaos he creates? Stay with me, because the next twist in this deadly game will pull you deeper into the dark. October has given way to November, and Voroshilovgrad is a city transformed. The streets, once alive with the rhythm of Soviet life, are quieter now. The laughter of evening strolls replaced by hurried footsteps. The maniac's shadow looms large. 2 young women dead, Svetlana Mazarina and Nina Zykova. Their lives stolen in brutal, ritualistic murders. Countless others have faced his knife, his chilling words. You were lost in a card game, echoing in their nightmares. The police are relentless, their patrols a constant hum in the city's veins. They've got scraps of evidence, a torn newspaper, a bedsheet marked with a military stamp, a pattern of attacks that screams of one man. But Zaven is a step ahead, his arrogance a shield, his military cover a fortress. He's back at the pigsty, the stench of mud and animals cloaking his secrets. By day, he's just another soldier, his face blank, his hands busy with menial tasks. But at night, he's something else, a hunter, his eyes scanning the city for the next target. The close calls in August and September, when passers-by interrupted his attacks, have made him cautious. But caution isn't surrender. Zaven's hunger is a living thing, growing with every crime, and he's not ready to stop. On November 3rd, 1970, he strikes again. A young woman, 18-year-old Irina Volkova, is walking near the city's outskirts, where the factories fade into fields. The dusk is heavy, the air cold, when Zaven appears, his knife gleaming like a shard of moonlight. "You are lost in a card game," he hisses, the words a ritual as much as the cord he pulls from his pocket. Irina fights, her screams tearing through the night, but this time, no one comes. Zaven's hands, trained in the wrestling rings of Rostov, know their work. He binds her, gags her, and ends her life with the same chokehold that claimed Svetlana and Nina. Her body is left in the grass, a cheap silver ring missing from her finger, another trophy for Zaven's collection. The city wakes to the news, and the fear tightens its grip. 3 murders now, each one a wound in Voroshilovgrad's heart. The police are under pressure like never before, their superiors demanding answers, the public demanding safety. But Zaven's not just a killer, he's a taunt, leaving clues that mock their efforts. This time, it's another scrap of newspaper, Soviet sport, tucked near Irina's body, as if he's laughing at their chase. The police are learning, though. They've mapped his movements, noting how he strikes at dusk, how he favors the city's edges, how his victims are young women walking alone. The bedsheet from September is their biggest lead, pointing to a military unit. They're questioning soldiers now, their eyes lingering on the men who work alone, who slip away at night. Zaven feels the heat, but he's not rattled. He's too deep in his own myth, too convinced of his invincibility. On November 20th, he tries again, targeting a 21-year-old named Maria Kuznetsova. She's crossing a park, her scarf pulled tight against the winter chill. When Zaven steps from the shadows, the knife, the words, the ritual, it's all there. But Maria's a fighter. She twists, her elbow catching his ribs, her screams sharp enough to draw blood. A dog barks nearby, and Zaven runs, leaving Maria alive but trembling, her story another piece of the puzzle. That night, he makes a mistake. In his haste, he drops a small knife sheath. It's leather-worn but marked with a faint initials, ZA. The police find it, their pulses racing. Initials aren't a name, but they're a thread, and they're pulling it hard. They're cross-referencing now, combing through military records, looking for soldiers with those initials, soldiers who fit the profile. Zaven's unit is under a microscope, and he doesn't know it yet. He's back at the pigsty, cleaning his knife, counting his trophies, watches, a ring, the weight of lives he's taken. But the city is changing. Women are organizing, walking in groups, carrying keys between their knuckles. The police are setting more traps, their decoys braver, their strategies sharper. Voroshilovgrad is fighting back, and Zaven's world is shrinking. What happens when a predator starts to slip? When the hunter becomes the hunted? On December 10th, 1970, the police get their biggest break. A patrol spots a man lurking near a park. His movements too deliberate, his face half hidden by a scarf. They approach, their hands on their batons, but he's gone before they can close the distance. In his wake, they find a torn piece of cloth, another fragment from a military bedsheet, identical to the one from September. The connection is undeniable now. The maniac is in the army, and he's in Zaven's unit. The police are buzzing, their questions turning to demands. They're interviewing every soldier, every officer, every man who's ever touched that pigsty. Zaven's name is starting to surface, not as a suspect, but as a face in the crowd, a quiet man who keeps to himself. He feels the walls closing in, but he's not ready to fold. Zaven's too proud, too addicted to the game. On December 15th, He strikes one last time before the year ends, targeting a 20-year-old named Anna Morozova. The attack is sloppy, rushed. His knife grazes her throat, but her screams bring a group of workers running, their shouts echoing through the park. Zaven flees, leaving behind a single glove, its stitching frayed, its leather stained. The police add it to their collection, their case growing stronger. They're not just chasing a shadow now, they're chasing a man, and they're close. Voroshilovgrad is a city holding its breath, waiting for the next blow. But how do you catch a killer who's built his life on lies? How do you stop a man who's become his own legend? The answer is closer than you think, and it's going to turn this story upside down. Winter has its grip on Voroshilovgrad, the kind of cold that bites through coats and settles in your bones. It's early 1971, and the city is a taut wire, ready to snap. The Voroshilovgrad Maniac has turned every dusk into a gamble, every shadow a threat. 3 young women, Svetlana Mazarina, Nina Zykova, Irina Volkova, lie dead. Their lives stolen by a killer who moves like a wraith. Countless others carry his scars, the echo of his words. You were lost in a card game, burned into their minds. The police are closer than ever. Their clues: a knife sheath with initials, military bedsheets, a stained glove, pointing to a soldier in Zaven Almazyan's unit. But Zaven, the quiet man who tends pigs by day, is still a ghost, his arrogance a shield against the tightening noose. How do you catch a man who's made fear his empire? Stay with me, because the next move in this deadly game is about to change everything. January 1971 is a month of snow and suspicion. Voroshilovgrad's streets are emptier now, the city's pulse slowed by fear and frost. The police are relentless, their patrols a constant drumbeat. They've narrowed their focus to the military base, to the men who work alone, who slip away when the sun sets. Zaven's unit is under a microscope, every soldier questioned, every alibi dissected. The bedsheet, the glove, the initials ZA, they're threads in a tapestry, and the police are pulling them tight. Zaven feels the pressure, his days at the pigsty heavier, his nights less certain. But he's not ready to stop. The hunger that drives him, the need to control, to dominate, is stronger than fear. It's a fire, and it's burning him alive. On January 12th, he strikes again, his boldest move yet. A 19-year-old named Elena Sokolova is walking home from a factory shift, her breath clouding in the freezing air. The street is quiet, the snow muffling her steps, when Zaven emerges from an alley. His knife catches the streetlight, his voice low and cold. You were lost in a card game. Elena freezes, her heart a hammer in her chest, but she's not alone. A group of workers rounds the corner, their laughter cutting through the night. Zaven hesitates, his grip loosening, and Elena bolts, her screens tearing through the snow. The workers give chase, their boots pounding, but Zaven vanishes, a shadow swallowed by shadows. He leaves behind a torn scrap of paper, a military ration slip, stamped with his unit's mark. The police seize it, their blood up. It's another mistake, another crack in Zaven's armor. The ration slip is a lightning bolt. The police are no longer guessing, they're hunting a specific man. A soldier with the initials ZA, tied to the pigsty, tied to the crimes. They're cross-referencing now, pulling records, interviewing officers. Zaven's name is in the mix, not as the maniac, but as a quiet soldier, unremarkable except for his solitude. He's starting to feel the walls close in, his movements tighter, his nights at the pigsty spent pacing, his knife heavy in his pocket. But Zaven's not done. He's too deep in his own legend, too convinced he's untouchable. On January 25th, he tries again, targeting a 22-year-old named Vera Petrova. She's crossing a park, her scarf tight against the wind, when Zaven steps from the trees. The knife, the words, the ritual, it's all there, but Vera's ready. She's heard the stories, seen the sketches. She swings her bag, catching his arm, and runs, her screams echoing. A patrol hears, their flashlights slicing the dark, and Zaven flees, leaving a single button from his coat. its military insignia glinting in the snow. A button is a bombshell. The police are buzzing, their case solidifying. They're not just chasing a soldier, they're chasing Zaven Almazyan. His name is on their lips now, his face in their files. They're watching the pigsty, tailing his movements, waiting for him to slip. Zaven knows something's wrong, his instincts screaming, but he's too proud to run. He's built this empire of fear, and he's not ready to let it crumble. On February 3rd, he makes his final play. His most reckless yet. A 20-year-old named Natalia Ivanova is walking near the city's edge, her boots crunching in the snow. Zaven approaches, his knife out, his voice a hiss. "You were lost in a card game," he says. But Natalia's not like the others. She's been trained, a decoy planted by the police, her fear a mask. She screams, a signal, and the trap springs. Officers surge from the shadows, their boots pounding, their voices sharp. Zaven runs, his heart a drum, but he's fast. His wrestling days giving in speed. He slips through an alley, losing them in the maze, but he leaves behind a scarf, its fibers matching the military issue in his unit. The trap fails, but it's a victory for the police. They've seen him, his build, his movements. They know it's Zaven now. His name no longer a whisper, but a shout. The pigsty is under surveillance, his every step watched. Voroshilovgrad is a city holding its breath, the fear mingling with hope. The women are stronger now, their groups tighter, their eyes sharper. The police are closing in, their case airtight. Ration slips, buttons, scarves, all pointing to one man. Zaven's empire is cracking, his legend fraying at the edges. He's back at the pigsty, his trophies hidden in a tin under the floor. Watches, a ring, a necklace. Each one a life, each one a weight. He's pacing, his knife in his hand, his mind racing. How do you outrun your own shadow? How do you fight a city that's turned against you? The police are ready to strike, their plan in motion. They're watching his unit, his pigsty, his every move. Zaven's mistakes are piling up, his arrogance his undoing. Voroshilovgrad is no longer his playground, it's his cage, and the bars are closing. But what happens when a cornered animal fights back? When a man who's lived as a myth decides to burn it all down? The answer is coming, and it's going to hit like a freight train. The hunt for the Voroshilovgrad Maniac is about to reach its breaking point, and nothing will be the same. Voroshilovgrad is a city at breaking point, its streets cloaked in snow and suspicion. It's February 1971, and the Voroshilovgrad Maniac has turned every corner into a battlefield, every night a test of survival. 3 young women, Svetlana Mazurina, Nina Zykova, Irina Volkova, have been stolen from the world, their lives extinguished by a killer who moves with the precision of a predator. Countless others bear his scars, the chilling echo of his words. You were lost in a card game, haunting their dreams. The police are on the edge of a breakthrough. Their evidence, ration slips, military buttons, a scarf, pointing to Zaven Almazyan, the quiet soldier who tends pigs by day. He's cornered, his empire of fear crumbling. But a cornered animal is dangerous, and Zaven's final act is about to light this city on fire. How do you end a nightmare? Stay with me, because the truth is about to hit like a sledgehammer. The police are a machine now, their focus razor sharp. Zaven's name is no longer a whisper, it's a shout, his face burned into their minds. The pigsty, his sanctuary, is under constant watch, his every move tracked. The failed trap on February 3rd, when Natalia Ivanova, a police decoy, escaped his knife, was a near miss that left the authorities hungry. They've seen him, his build, his speed, the way he melts into the dark. The evidence is overwhelming. Military bedsheets, a glove, a ration slip, a button, a scarf, all screaming his name. Voroshilovgrad is no longer his hunting ground, it's his cage, and the bars are slamming shut. But Zaven's not ready to surrender. He's too proud, too addicted to the power, too convinced he's a legend no one can touch. On February 10th, 1971, the police make their move. It's a cold, gray morning, the kind that makes the world feel small. They storm the military base, their boots crunching in the snow, their orders clear. Find Zaven Almazyan. He's at the pigsty, feeding the animals, his face blank, his hands steady. When the officers approach, he doesn't run. He looks at them, his eyes calm, almost curious, as if he's been expecting this moment. "What's this about?" he asks. His voice smooth, the same voice that lied about a lost student ID back in Rostov. But the police aren't buying it this time. They cuff him, their grits tight, and search the pigsty. Under a loose floorboard, they find his trophies. A tin box holding gold-plated watches, a silver ring, a necklace, fragments of lives he's stolen. The weight of it hits them like a punch. This is no ordinary soldier. This is the Voroshilovgrad Maniac. Zaven's arrest sends shockwaves through the city. The newspapers scream his name, the Spetches replaced by a real face. A young man, unremarkable, almost boyish, with eyes that don't match the monster they've imagined. Voroshilovgrad exhales, but it's not relief, it's disbelief. How could a man like this, a nobody, bring a city to its knees? The police interrogate him, their questions sharp, their patience thin. Zaven doesn't break, not at first. He denies everything, his lies as polished as his knife. But the evidence is a mountain. Clues, survivor testimonies, the trophies in his tin. And then, slowly, the cracks appear. He starts to talk, not out of guilt, but out of pride. He describes the attacks, the murders, the ritual of the card game phrase, as if recounting a performance. The police listen, their stomachs turning, as the full scope of his crimes unravels. Zaven confesses to 3 murders, Svetlana, Nina, Irina, and 14 attempted murders and assaults, each one a calculated act of control. The phrase, "you were lost in a card game," wasn't random. It was his way of dehumanizing his victims, turning them into objects in a game only he played. His wrestling skills, honed in Rostov's gyms, gave him the strength and precision to overpower, to choke, to kill. The trophies, watches, rings, necklaces, were his keepsakes, proof of his power. The police are stunned, not just by the body count, but by the coldness, the calculation. What drives a man to this? Was it the rejection in Rostov, the girl who chose another? Or was it something deeper, a darkness that was always there, waiting for a spark? The trial is swift, a Soviet spectacle of justice. In March 1971, Zaven stands before a court, his face impassive, as the charges are read. 3 counts of murder, 14 counts of attempted murder and assault. The courtroom is packed, survivors and families watching, their grief a heavy fog. Zaven doesn't flinch, even as the evidence is laid bare. The tin box, the survivor testimonies, his own confession. The prosecution paints him as a monster, a betrayal of the Soviet ideal. The defense has nothing, no excuse, no explanation. On March 29, 1971, the verdict comes, death by firing squad. Zaven nods, as if it's just another move in his game. 3 months later, on a gray morning, he faces the squad, his eyes steady to the end. The Voroshilovgrad Maniac is gone, but his shadow lingers. Voroshilovgrad tries to heal, but scars don't vanish. The women who survived carry his voice in their nightmares. The families of Svetlana, Nina, and Irina live with holes that will never fill. The city rebuilds, its streets slowly filling with laughter again. But the memory of 1970 is a wound that festers. Zaven Almazyan wasn't just a killer. He was a mirror, reflecting the fragility of safety, the cracks in a system that promised order. What makes a man like Zaven? Was it rage, rejection, or a void that no one saw? And what does it say about us that we can live beside a monster and never know? The Voroshilovgrad Maniac is a story of fear, but it's also a story of resilience, of a city that fought back, of women who refused to be prey, of police who wouldn't quit. Evil may walk among us, but so does the strength to face it. And that's a truth worth holding on to.
Don't scroll past. Hit like and subscribe if you're ready for the next twisted story.